This will be an unboxing of the Gigabyte H81M-HD3 socket 1150 Haswell series 4th generation Intel Core series motherboard. As we can see, H81M ultra durable 4 plus. Intel Core series supports Intel H81 chipset 2010-2011 atomic choice winner, ultra cool performance, dual UEFI BIOS, so this is the standard fare. On the back we've got a bit more of a breakdown of what this particular motherboard has. Long lifespan, all solid capacitors, high electrostatic discharge Ethernet port protection, high temperature protection for the MOSFET design. It's got front USB 3 header. Not all motherboards in this particular price range. This is a sub $90, sub $100 motherboard. So not all motherboards have front USB 3. So if that is something you are looking for, it's something to keep in mind. Two SATA 2 ports, two SATA 3 ports, so that's 3 gigabit per second and 6 gigabit per second respectively. Front USB 2, standard fare. And then we've got anti-surge protection, glass fabric PCB, high electrostatic discharge protection USB ports. And then we've got the breakout of the I/O on the back panel, but we'll get to that once we get the motherboard out of the box. One fuse per USB port, so you don't when you've got multiple devices charging, you're not going to blow out a fuse, I guess, is what they're trying to say there. 4K support with integrated graphics, 3 times the USB power if you're USB 3 only, so if you plug a device into a USB 3 port, it should theoretically charge 3 times faster. On-off recharge, so when the PC is off, devices like phones and tablets can continue to charge. DisplayPort, HDMI, DVI digital, and VGA. And the breakdown here is a bit more information about the expansions and whatnot, but we'll get to that once we actually get inside the box. On the back is just more information about saying, the UEFI BIOS, on-off recharge, solid capacitors. It's pretty much. Now we open the box. It's very basic packaging because this is a very budget sort of motherboard, but we do have very nice 2 black right-angled SATA cables. That's all that's contained there, and then we have the motherboard in an anti-static bag, and then the rest of the stuff is in the bottom. So let's have a look at this stuff first. So Gigabyte warranty commitment, this is applicable for Australia, ACCC regulations, whatever. Manual with a drive disc. This is probably one of the most thinly printed manuals from Gigabyte I have ever seen. It feels like really thin paper, but it's just a manual. I don't tend to read them much anyway, unless I'm particularly stuck on where my connectors are. Here's the I/O shield plate, again, because this is a budget series motherboard. It's not color-coded, but you do have everything labelled. There's the driver installation disc, Intel 8 series, with all your driver sets. You should probably download the latest from the website. If this is a system where you don't have any other systems around to download them from, just install the Ethernet ones, install Chrome or install a browser, download the latest ones from the Gigabyte website, and then install the latest. That's probably a better idea, because then you know you get the latest on your system straight out of the box, and you won't have to fuck around with different driver versions. So we just close this up, so we have a nice anti-static workstation to put this board down. We'll take the tape off at the back. Always remember to ground yourself when handling electrosensitive devices. Be sure not to wear woolen socks and rub your feet along very woolly carpet, because that will not be very good. Take the board out. It is a micro ATX form factor, but something you might have noticed, it's less than standard ATX width. Standard ATX boards, in the terms of the motherboard headers, motherboard standoffs for the case, is usually 3, which is A, B, and C. As you can see, there's just 2 here. So on a standard ATX would be a little bit wider, but that's the reason why that is, because there's only 2 memory channel slots. So an extra 2 plus all this would bring it out to about here. So it's not a concern at all. It's just that keep in mind that if you've got like a window or something, it might look a bit small in the case. But we've got standard micro ATX lengths down here. We've got a PCI Express X16 slot running at full X16 bandwidth at PCI Express 3. We've got 2 PCI slots, which is nice to have for some legacy devices. And then we've got a single PCI Express X1 that is limited X1. So some Motherboards will have a PCI Express X1 with the back right there. You might not be able to see it. Let me bring it in for a closer look. So the back of this port here can be, there are some versions of this connector that have that plastic bit removed, so you can actually put like a 4X card on there. It just won't run at full bandwidth, so that is something to look out for, that you can only put PCI Express X1 expansion slots in this particular expansion bay, and if you're putting a graphics card in, you'd be limited to, or if you're putting a dual slot graphics card in, you'd be limited to one PCI and one PCI Express X1 expansion only. At the bottom we've got all our front panel connectors. We've got our front panel audio, which is in the more ideal location at the bottom left side of the board. Parallel port. We've got our two USB front panel headers, and we've got the regular front panel headers for your power LEDs and hydraulic activity LEDs with our USB 3 front panel header. We've got our SATA 2 and SATA 3 ports. There's the 24 pin on the ideal location on the right hand side of the board. We've got an 8-pin CPU power connector. And if we go over to the I/O, we can see a breakdown. So there's a PS2 keyboard mouse combo. It's always nice to see, because our PS2 keyboard natively have full N key rollover. So that basically means you can press every key on the keyboard and it will all register, where USB doesn't have that quite that full functionality straight out of the box. 2 USB 2, DVI digital, VGA, optical out, audio, HDMI, display port, 4 USB 3 ports, Gigabit Ethernet, and 7.1 channel HD audio out. And I think that's pretty much it. We've got a CPU fan connector here, and I believe there's only one system fan header, which is right there. I don't believe there are any others. No, it doesn't look like it. I didn't think there were. This board has dual BIOS, as you can see here, so if you were performing a BIOS update and the power went out, it will recover from the backup BIOS, so your board won't get corrupt, which is always a nice feature to have. And I think that's basically pretty much it. There's the socket LGA 1150 CPU socket area, and that's it. Thanks for watching unboxing of the Gigabyte H81M-HD3 motherboard.